Town, we find that she saw that it was horrible conditions there. And immediately she gave the order to her people to go and bring those English settlers some food. And so we see that that our thoughts can be seeing a need and taking steps to correct that need. As time went on, we know that the English began to recover. In the year of 1608. And from there on, the English began to recover, and the colony indeed was saved by the generosity of one individual named Pocahontas. And after that, Pocahontas not only saved the colony at that particular time, but along the way of many a time, Pocahontas stepped in to save the English people from being executed by massacres of her people, the Indians. Now we find that as time went on, that the colonies began to grow, and they began to spread out all over the area. And we find that Pocahontas was away for a while, and there's a lot in between there, but it's so cool today we'll skip over some of those details and move along. As we find Pocahontas went away for a while after John Smith left, she left also. But we find she came back to the settlement, and when she came back, everything began to improve, and the settlement began to grow again. And there we find that as time went on, that the colonies just kept on, the English kept on coming and filling the area full of people. And there we see that as time went on, those people that were born here began to want to have freedom of their own. They wanted to be able to make their own rules and to have them to live by. And as we look along, we find that one of the things that was started was groups of people in the 1700s that began to organize themselves in order to have some freedom of their own. And there we find that one of the early groups that started was called the Sons of Liberty. And from those people, we find that a lot of them were descendants of Pocahontas. And they wanted to live by the similar rules that the Indians lived by. And so they began to organize, and the first event that we can think of, the big event, everybody knows about it, remembers that, is called the Boston Tea Party. These people practiced the ways of the Indians again. And so they dressed up like Indians to disguise themselves. We know about that, and threw the king's the shipment of tea overboard and destroyed it, rather than to pay the high tax on it that the English people were assessing them with. Time went on, and we see that our country, or these colonies, began to continue to grow. As time went on, we find that there were organizations that came into being. There were organizations, the Sons of St. Tammany, one of the great Indian chiefs of the time. And then we find that after that, in the 1800s, came a group called the Order of Red Men. And after that, we find there came the improved order of red men in the 1800s. And then in the 1880s came the ladies' auxiliary of the improved order of red men. And from there, then they picked the name of Degree of Pocahontas. A great name and certainly a good choice that they made because of what this one individual had done for the people to bring the country ahead as to where they were at that particular time. We find that the improved order of red men and the degree of Pocahontas made a great deal of difference in the 1800s and until present day. They organized as people helping people. As we look back at that day in 1608, when Pocahontas started it all, and she presented food where it was needed. Food. And we find today that food is still needed. In a time when people think everything is good, but it's not. I can remind you that everything is not good today. People are in need. I just read about a lady, a Sioux Indian lady, eligible person, that froze to death in South Dakota this winter because she didn't have the resources needed to provide heat in wherever she was living. But we find that organizations have come about. We find that those organizations are helping. Those organizations have taken off to help people after that eventful day of 1608 that Pocahontas started it all. And we find that some of the organizations, the improved order of red men and degree of Pocahontas, all over the country. Degree of Pocahontas headed up the donations and collected those donations and have presented to the Alzheimer's Foundation. Now we count over $1 million. The present day improved order of red men and degree of Pocahontas. And we find many like groups. And now we see that there are other groups that have been organized. We could look back and we see the Red Cross I was thinking of, and another group of people that got together, people we call them helping people. And so we find that as we look also today, another group of people that was organized just a few years ago in Matthews County, called Hands Across Matthews. They saw a need and they took action to help that need and to try to correct that need, symbolizing the deeds that Pocahontas did as she went on. And we find that Matthews County is the hunting grounds of Omaha Tribe number 92, a long-time provider of help to the people in Matthews County. And now other help of the group called Hands Across Matthews. Now we come today, and in memory of that eventful day in 1608, we know that Pocahontas born again among the English people at Jamestown. Pocahontas became a Christian, and Pocahontas joined the church at Jamestown. And she also met her husband there. And she, on a visit of invitation of the governor of the colony, they went to England. There for a visit to meet the English people, to meet the king and the queen. How she was received graciously, and rightfully so, for all that she had done for the people of Jamestown. And now, while she was there, of course, she was visited around, she was carried around to visit the area. And of course, she was taken sick. And Pocahontas passed away in Gravesend, England, while she was making preparations to come back to Virginia. And I bring to you today, March 21st, 1617, Pocahontas was laid to rest in St. George's Church in Gravesend, England, 398 years ago today. Pocahontas said goodbye. But what she had begun, and her thoughts and her spirit, lives on forever, because she left one son that came back to America and started his business venture. And from there, Pocahontas' ancestors live today, continuing to represent her and the great attitude that she took toward mankind. She loved to be a person that enjoyed being free. She loved to be a person to be friendly. And she loved to be able to give to others, to help others that was in need. And so it is. Today, 398 years, Pocahontas was laid to rest in Gravesend, England. Thank y'all for coming. And we will now have the retirement of our couple.